Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the lineup. I'm your host, Rick Goff, coming to you live from the Athletx Sports Studios here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm joined by my co-host tonight, Aaron Smith.
Hello. Hello.
And as always, the number one producer in the game, Brandon Whitley.
Yo.
All right, guys, we got a lot to get into tonight. We've got a very busy schedule going on. A lot of things, and we're going to conclude everything with the rankings for 10U through 13U for our preseason. And I want to remind everyone before we get to those that these rankings have been done for 2 weeks. We were going to announce them a couple of weeks ago on the inaugural show, but we had some technical difficulties. So we're going to finally get to them tonight. But I want to keep everybody aware that these were done. They've been done for 2 weeks. And I know there's been some tournaments that have taken place since then. So some people might question why the rankings are the way they are. But this is the preseason, and they've been done for a couple of weeks. Aaron, this is your first time being on the show.
Yeah.
You're taking over as co-host on a permanent basis, so congratulations for that.
Awesome. Love to see it. It's going to be a great run here, and I'm excited.
Well, good. We're glad to have you. You are the coordinator of the Youth World Series. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about the Youth World Series?
Yes. So the Youth World Series, it's a 4 to 5 day event over summer, and what we do is we take a lot of the lower ranked teams, so your single A, your double A. We take those teams and put them together in a tournament and let them kind of play and have the experience of, being in an atmosphere where everybody is the same skill level. So with TBS, you have your majors teams, your kind of top teams in that region in the country, whereas on the flip side, we take the lower level teams, put them in a tournament, and honestly, it's some great baseball.
And you give them a great experience. Yeah. What's some of the cities you guys go to?
So this year we will be in Daytona Beach. We'll be in Ocean City, Maryland, Houston, Texas, Kentucky, of course, at Elizabethtown, Reno, Nevada, and then Myrtle Beach as well. So all the dates kind of go down in order. So Daytona, 22nd through the 26th, so on and so forth. So,
what's the website over there?
Website is going to be theyouthworldseries.com. If you want to get in contact with me, my email is on the website, but it's asmith@athletics.com.
Well, great. So you got a little bit of something for everybody all over the country, from East Coast to West Coast.
Yep.
So if you guys have some teams that are in that double A, single A type range, or you know some teams out there looking for a nice year-end tournament, look up Youth World Series, and we'll see you anywhere between Reno and Ocean City, Maryland.
Yeah, it's a great time. It is.
All right, before we get started tonight, I'm going to remind everyone we're still taking submissions for our top 10 plays of the month for March. You have up until March 31st to get those to us, and we'll be counting those down on our show, the first one in April. You can email those submissions to the lineup at athletics.com. And if you have any ideas or comments, you can click on the chat there and let us know, or you can send us a text message, and we'll supply the number to you for our text hotline there as well. A couple of things I want to get into. We have some name changes. We always try to pass these along to people for name changes for the 2022 season. We've got 3 of them to report on this week. Last year's 10U Sba Futures, they are now called the 11U Wow Factor out of North Carolina. 10U, last year's 10U and 11U Dynasty Black out of Texas. They are now part of the Wildcatters program, so they will now be known as the 11U and 12U Wildcatters Dynasty Black. Okay. They'll be coming to the TBS National, so we'll see that name in there quite a bit.
Yes, we will.
And the last one, last year's 9U Springfield Cardinals, they will now be known at 10U as a top-tier Cardinals. They joined the top-tier program.
Awesome.
So some name changes for you there. All right. We had a great day here in Louisville. Nice weather outside.
Yeah.
Probably mid-60s, I would say. Sunny. Baseball weather, right?
Baseball weather.
And some of these teams have been playing, depending on what part of the country you're from, they've been playing for a few weeks now. So the teams in southern Florida, southern part of Texas, out in California, they've probably been playing 4, maybe 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Your teams up north, kind of north of the Mason-Dixon line, they're just getting ramped up, started to play.
Mm-hmm.
But, seen some tournaments the last couple of weeks where a lot of out-of-town travel took place, traveling in, and, what do you think, I'm going to ask your opinion, what's your opinion on some of these teams traveling, say, from like Michigan to Florida or Ohio to Texas or something of that nature? You know, it seems to become more and more prevalent every year.
Yeah. So, you know, kind of going through it, I think it all depends on what region you're in. So for me, for example, when I was doing pastime stuff, early in the season, we weren't leaving, you know, the Ohio, the Indiana, the Tennessee. Once the season went on, then we started kind of branching out.
So you built up to it.
Yeah,
you built up to it.
100%.
But now it kind of seems like they're not building up to it.
Yeah.
They're just diving right in.
Yeah.
You know, week 1 of the youth season, you know, is 2 weeks ago or maybe a week ago is the official time to kick off to the youth season, even though some of these other states do play earlier. A couple of weeks ago was kind of like the unofficial kickoff to it, and then your northern teams will get ramped up by the end of this month. But some of the northern teams are traveling south early on now to play in these tournaments. And, you know, it's like, well, I talked to a few of the coaches, and I got different responses from them. One coach, for example, said that he doesn't really care what the outcome of the tournament is. I mean, he does. I mean, everybody wants to win.
They want
But they want to play. They want to get outside.
Yeah.
But I asked him, I said, you know, you go down south, they've played 5 or 6 weeks. This is your first week, so you're kind of an advantage. And he said something that kind of caught my attention. He says, that is true. But when I go back up north to, say, Michigan or Ohio or Indiana, Illinois, I am now 1 week further ahead of those teams.
100%. Yeah. And with that too, I mean, the teams that are coming down from, you know, the up north areas and going to play in Florida and Texas, sometimes those Florida and Texas teams, they haven't stopped. Like, you know, they could go year round.
They keep going, yeah.
So it's that much more of an advantage for the northern teams to come down and play. But at some point, you know, you got to go back home. You've got to be able to say, okay, we played here for 2 or 3 tournaments, go back. Now let's see if it's worth it, right? Because at the end of the day, you could go down to Florida if you're a northern team and get absolutely creamed, you know. And then you go back up, and these teams are just starting out, and you're still just competing with them, right? So there's pros and cons to it all. I think if you have the means to be able to travel like that, do it. 100%. I think the more exposure you have to the game of baseball, the better.
And that brings up a good point if you have the means to do it. Because it's expensive.
It's expensive.
If you're going to travel, and especially nowadays with the price of gas, it's even more expensive. So I got to imagine some of these teams are going to be altering their summer plans, you know, based on how much the price of gas has went up, let's say. And, you know, you're going to see some teams that maybe, like we had a team last year in the 12-year-old division, Texas Florida Canes, and they're no longer together this year. But I bet you they traveled 3 times a month. And that type of schedule is going to be tough to maintain this year with how much it's going to cost.
Exactly, and especially the teams that would be interested in, let's say, the Youth World Series, per chance. Those teams, yes, you could have teams that go from the Youth World Series to other events, but for a lot of these teams, this is their biggest event that they're going to.
Sure.
So, you know, for that aspect of it, you know, you kind of have to provide the best product that you can. But for the teams that can do it, go everywhere. Go as many places as you can.
Well, what do you think the mindset is of a coach? He's coming down, let's use Michigan, for example, because that's where I'm originally from. Okay. Let's say Michigan, he goes down to Florida. And, you know, and I've done it, and I know what my expectations were. But what do you think most of these teams' their expectations are to go down there to get everybody some reps, and then whatever happens in the pool play, we'll just live with whatever happens, and we'll head back to Michigan? Or do you think those teams really go down there and try to win? I mean, the whole thing, which is a tall task.
100%.
Being it's your first time out.
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of a mix. So the way that I would look at it is you have one mindset of, okay, this is like spring training for us. We're going to go down south. We're going to go out and play. We're going to come back, and we're going to be ready to go off the jump. Then
Work on what we learned down there.
Yep.
Situations are big for the northern teams.
Yeah, and then you've got the flip side of that of, let's use, you know, the Marlins. They're based in Florida. They go year round. With my experience with the major and minor, minor leagues. As soon as the minor league season was over, the low A, the 2A guys, they went to spring training. They went to that site and played fall baseball. And that is year-round constantly because they're trying to make it. Whereas the major league guys, they take their 3 or 4 months, they come back, and they go to spring training. So it all depends on how you want to do it. If you want to get exponentially better year-round, keep traveling, everything like that. But it's a case-by-case basis, really.
Yeah, and I think it has to be about the team too,
Yeah.
right? Because I talk to some coaches and they say, listen, we're never going to travel down south in March because it doesn't serve a purpose for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't serve a purpose for us. We don't see the need to go down there and spend, all this money knowing that you're probably not going to win. Being that early in the season, you're taking a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah, 100%.
Because these teams down there, they've been playing 5 or 6 weeks.
And they've been there's a big difference in getting reps in a cage and playing a game.
Absolutely,
There's
a
a
big difference. Not only that, but you're 5 or 6 weeks behind your pitcher development.
Mm-hmm.
You're 5 or 6 weeks behind your hitting development.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you could take all the reps in the cage and simulate, games and throw live to your own hitters.
Mm-hmm.
But actually being outside with that background, the skies, the weather, there's so many factors that are involved.
Exactly.
With all of that, I kind of relate it to SEC football.
Yeah.
And, you don't see the Southern teams coming north when the weather is cold.
No.
In football, and you're not going to see it in baseball either. I mean, you could hold a tournament in Columbus, Ohio here in 2 weeks, and people are not going to go because it could rain, it could be...
It could snow.
It could snow. And it could be 30 degrees or it could be 80.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not doing it. It's the northern teams that are doing this and making those trips. And if you look at the results from the tournaments, the northern teams... I mean, I guess, how do you determine what the success is?
I think...
By wins and losses? Not really, right?
I don't think so. I think the success of it is when you come back home and you play those teams from home. And then you go into these tournaments of, my best 2 or 3 arms have already thrown, in 2 or 3 different games. Well, they're ready. They're ready to go. So I think it's all defined about how that structure is kind of built up from there.
I can tell you this, when I coached, and I did it for a number of years, high level, and we traveled, when I come down early, and if I went somewhere, and it didn't happen often, but if I went somewhere in March, early April, I used that time to experiment on some things, right?
Yeah.
Because put in a play or here and there, and it gives you an opportunity to test it out in real time. That way, when you go back up, you can fine tune it, and then when you have to use it in your local events, then you don't. You're not behind the 8 ball, so to speak.
Exactly. You see if a kid can give you an inning or 2, or
Right.
see if your third baseman can go behind the plate for a couple innings, whatever the case may be, to help load manage some of that stuff. And I think the beginning of the season is a good, like I said, structure to fit that. Try some new things out, see where that goes. If it doesn't work, okay. But if it does work, you just found it for the rest of the season.
I guess the message at the end of the day on all of this is, don't get so caught up, don't get so wrapped up in wins and losses.
Exactly.
Kind of see how the development of the kids is going. Have your shortstop play center field.
Yeah, why not?
And have your pitcher, your number one pitcher. Hey, you know what? You're only going to throw 2 innings. I don't care what we're doing. We're only going to throw 2 innings, and we got to figure out a way to win some other way.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I just mentioned to you that I use that time to work on some plays and do some things differently. One of the different things, and by this time we all know that Major League Baseball has
they've gotten rid of the shit.
Gotten rid of this. Well, they're not in strike any longer.
True.
And they have agreed to some things in the CBA that we're going to talk about. One of them right here, and that's the shift. And I'll be honest with you, when I was coaching youth, I experimented with the shift on some teams.
Yeah.
Now, it might not be as hardcore as the graphic that we're seeing on the screen right now, which is a full shift for major leagues. Yeah.
That is more than a full shift. There's no one on the left side.
But I can tell you that when I would go south early on, I would experiment with bringing 5 infielders in.
Okay.
I got to cut down a run at the plate. I would experiment with that, leaving with 2 outfielders.
Okay.
So it's not the hardcore shift, but it's a version of a shift because it's not traditional in every sense of the word. And so, my thing is, while it's a big deal in Major League Baseball, the shift, and we're going to get into that in just a minute, how big of a deal do you think shifting in youth sports and youth baseball is?
Me personally, I view it, whether it's youth sports or the MLB, there should be no shift. Absolutely no shift whatsoever. So we'll start with the youth side of it. You have to be able to learn to play your position before you can go and shift and do a bunch of different things, right? So if you've got, let's take, for example, an 11u team, okay? The shortstop has to learn to play shortstop. The guys in the MLB have been playing shortstop ever since they were, 4, 5, and 6. This, we'll say little Johnny is just now learning how to play the position. So why are you going to stick him on the other side of the field against an 11u hitter that you have absolutely no basis on, no statistics on? The thing with the MLB, these dudes have hundreds upon hundreds of at-bats.
You bring up a good point. I mean, and that's probably why you don't see versions of the shift in youth, because you don't know the tendencies of the hitters. You don't know the tendencies of your own pitchers.
Yeah.
You don't know all of that. But I gave an example of what I used to do with my quote-unquote shift. If I'm trying to cut a run down at the plate, I bring 5 infielders. I know a lot of coaches that bring 5 infielders in. It's a version of the shift.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about that? Are you okay with that?
Even that, I mean, when I look at, how the infield and outfield and everything like that should look, I'm very traditional in the aspect of you've got 3 outfielders, you've got third, short, second, first, and that's how it should be set up. Granted, you can, move a couple steps in either direction, move back, forward, whatever the case may be, but the term shift is a very loose term to what, you see the MLB doing, or you see different types of shifts that, youth league are doing. Because when you get to high school, when you get to college, and, even in minor Major League Baseball, you don't shift that way. You see the traditional shift like we have up there, but there are very, very few instances in really high school, college, stuff like that, where you've got 2 outfielders and then you've got a guy kind of roaming there.
Okay, so we talked about youth, about how the shift is not prevalent in the youth unless you're trying to cut down a run at the plate or doing something of that nature.
Something really funky.
But no matter what you do as a team, when you step on the field and play defense, what's your main objective?
Get outs.
Get outs.
Yeah.
That's your main objective.
100%.
That gets you outs.
But that
gets you outs.
But see, how I look at that is bad for baseball.
Why is it bad for baseball?
Because that's not. If that's what they wanted baseball to look like, they would have made it like that first and foremost. Secondly,
well, hang on. So you want baseball to be a uniformed look?
Not necessarily uniform, but I want it to look like you're playing baseball. Not like you're playing baseball, but I want it to resemble what you could take across generation from generation to generation. Now, basketball, they still play it the same way. Football, they still play it the same way. Soccer's played the same way. The only thing that in this instance has changed is the entire team is on the right side of the field.
But that tells me that the entire team's on the right side of the field because the hitter is one-dimensional.
100%.
And you can't would they do that against Tony Gwynn?
No.
Would they do it against Wade Boggs?
Absolutely not.
Miguel Cabrera? Potentially,
but probably not. It depends on the situation.
So that tells me that the hitter needs to be better.
Yes and no. In today's game, any hitter should be able to take the ball the other way. 100%. That is taught from a young age, and you should be able to do it.
Okay, let me stop you right there. I'm going to go down just a little bit of a side rabbit hole here.
Okay.
Youth hitters. Do you think they go the opposite way on purpose, or is it a mistake?
Either or. I think.
Well, hang on. either or, that's a cop-out answer.
100%. But I think
Majority of the time, okay, I'll let you off the hook a little bit. The majority of the time, do you think it's on purpose or by mistake?
majority of the time, I'm sure it's on purpose.
You think so?
Yeah.
See, I disagree. I think it's by mistake.
See, if you're doing the correct, I guess, work in the cage and in practice and things like that, taking the ball the other way should be easy.
Yeah, but hang on. I'm talking about, when I talk about youth hitters, I'm talking about 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I'm not talking, 13, I think the mechanics kind of set in 13, 14, 15, high schools. I might buy into it.
At a younger
I'm
age.
talking youth. I'm
yes.
talking 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, so at that really, really youth age,
I think it's more of a mistake.
I think it's more of a mistake because
And I'm going to tell you why. Because pitchers, their speeds vary.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
So everybody has that trigger or that reaction time that they have. Mm-hmm. And if you get a kid throwing, hypothetically, 60 miles an hour, and you in your mind see 60, now all of a sudden the kid throws 65, but you put that 60 mile an hour swing on it, the ball's going to go the opposite way.
Mm-hmm. And so at a very young age, I think the game is being taught now to swing as hard as you can and see where it goes. Right? At the 7, 8, 9, maybe a little bit in 10-year-old, until you can understand what taking the ball the other way means, I think that putting your best swing on it and just seeing where it ends up, I think that's the best option for me.
I will almost be willing to bet if you called 10 youth coaches right now, youth coaches, keep in mind, you call 10 youth coaches right now, they will all tell you that they work on their kids hitting the other way.
Oh, 100% they do.
What about high school coaches? Do you think high school coaches work on hitting the other way? Mm-hmm. College coaches?
Yeah.
So why do we have this?
Why do we have that?
Why do we have this?
Because you've got guys.
You're telling me
you've got guys that get paid, $20, $30 million a year to hit it over all those guys. So their objective is to not slap a single or a double down the left field line.
But you're telling me probably during their whole career, youth, high school, college, they all work on hitting the other way.
I bet they did.
So now they get up here. Why aren't we hitting the other way?
Because they're not paid to hit the other way. They're paid to hit the home run.
You can hit home runs opposite field.
Yeah, but you have to.
You can drive gaps opposite field.
If you get to that level, you are paid to do a specific task. Tony Gwynn, for example, was paid to hit it
Get
left,
on base.
right, center.
Get on
wherever.
base.
Get
that
on
was
base.
his job.
Right? Ichiro, same thing. Get on base. David Ortiz, hit the ball over the fence.
Okay, so do you think this is a product of the generation?
Yes.
Because
100%.
50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, listen, just get on base.
Get on base.
Get on
Let's
base.
make something happen. Let's
3 base hits will score a run.
Yep.
But today's generation is not that way.
No.
They want to see the home run.
They'd rather see a career 230, 240 hitter with 400 or 500 home runs, but countless amount of strikeouts. Why? Because the long ball is what everybody wants.
So I want to argue with you. You say that's bad for baseball. I say that mindset is bad for baseball.
The mindset of
the 240 hitter with 400 to 500 home runs, but he strikes out. He strikes out 200 times a year.
The mindset might be bad, but that is the current mindset. That is what the majority of Major League Baseball power hitters are getting paid for. 240, 40 bombs a year. That'll keep you in a Major League locker room.
It'll keep you in a Major League locker room, but again, I got to go back to tell you, the object of the game for the defense is to get outs.
100%.
And that's what we're doing here.
But see,
But now the hitters are crying because my average dropped from 245 to 215.
Yeah.
Well, boo freaking who?
If it were all about average, let's say, if it was nothing, the only metric that you looked at was average, then a lot of these guys wouldn't be in the game today. They just wouldn't. So if you get rid of that, you open up that side of the field so that these guys, they can go out and hit, doubles off the wall, and they can go out and hit their 40, 45 home runs. But the only thing I potentially like about the shift is some of the ridiculous plays that those dudes make. I think that's awesome. But nevertheless, I don't
You're
like it.
taking away you're taking away a weapon from a pitcher, right? I'm going to pitch you to make you hit the ball this way. We all know a pitcher can put the ball where they want it, and they can make you hit a certain way.
100%.
So with this shift that we see up here, all he's going to do is on a left-hand hitter just keep busting him inside and let him pull the ball.
Yeah.
But if you ban this, well, because the hitters are clearly crying about the situation.
Yeah.
So then why don't we take it a step further? Why don't we tell the pitchers you can throw nothing but fastballs down? Because the hitters can't hit the off-speed stuff.
Well, at that point, then you're manipulating everything. But to your point.
Listen, this is like the NBA banning a full court press. You can't do it because it's too good. Or the NFL saying, listen, you can't double cover a receiver because he's too good. That's what this is like.
But see, I think it's more so. We'll get back to the pitcher argument here in a second. But the shift in general is, I think personally, it's a cop out for the pitcher, 100%. If let's say Joey Gallo gets up to the plate, right? You know that Joey Gallo cannot hit a curveball. You just can't. He shows it time and time again. He's swinging over, he's swinging under it, he's early, he's late, whatever. I think that as a pitcher, and granted, pitchers are much, much better than what they used to be. As a pitcher, you should be able to throw a pitch where you want it, but also have the command enough to say, okay, I'm going to throw a low and outside fastball and hit it the other way. That's fine because I know you can't do that, so you're going to swing over.
I'm going to bring up an ugly word that just makes my skin crawl every time I hear it. But this word has led to this shift.
What?
Analytics.
Oh, 100%.
Analytics. Right?
I hate them.
People chart everything.
Yep, everything.
And they go, you know what? Gallo hits the ball that side of the field 9 out of 10 times. The analytics tells you that. So why wouldn't you put most of your defenders over there?
Because the analytics also told you to pull Blake Snell in the 5th.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started. Don't get me started on that.
The whole analytics shift to doing what the computer tells you, great. Awesome. We live in a informational world now. You can go find anything whenever you want. But I think when it comes to baseball, that in order for the mindset to change, that you can only, these power hitters can only hit home runs and doubles and everything like that.
But you can't.
I think the mindset has to change on the pitching side too.
You can't have analytics control one part of the game but not the other. And that's what they're doing right here. They're telling, we want to follow the analytics only unless it becomes this, and then we don't want to follow it.
But see, I don't like the analytics part at all.
All right, here's a question for you.
Okay.
What constitutes a shift?
I think.
How are they going to police this?
So, obviously, you have second base.
Yep.
You have to have 2 on that side and 2 on the other side of second base as far as infielders are concerned. Outfield, you can't have more than, I don't know.
Once the pitch is thrown, can you go to the other side of second base?
That's a good question. I don't understand as to how that would happen.
All right, so now here's part B of my question, because I kind of had a feeling how you were going to answer this. So you're saying second base, left, right, everything else.
Yeah.
What about how deep can you play?
Well, at that point,
Because I'm going to tell you right now, left-handed hitter, my second baseman is going to play in shallow outfield anyway.
Yeah.
Because he's got more of a range. Are they going to limit how deep he can play in the outfield?
I assume they will.
Okay, so then part C of that question. How close can they play? If a bunt is imminent, how close can they play?
They can play as close as they want, but at the end of the day,
well, hang on.
But with a bunt defense is completely different because
That's not a shift?
You are taking a calculated risk when you are playing bunt defense.
That's calculated.
That is not calculated.
It is calculated.
He
can bunt right down the third baseline.
Answer me this. Have you, in any type of Major League Baseball scenario, seen bunt defense, guy squares the bunt, pulls back.
Sure.
And the second baseman just gets absolutely smoked.
Yeah.
You don't have that instance in that defense right there.
It doesn't matter. It's still a shift. It's still a shift.
Is everybody in their natural position?
I'm just kind of curious how they're going to police it.
100%.
I'm curious how they're going to police it. And what are they going to do if a quote-unquote a shift happens? They're going to dead ball and they're going to stop the play or let it play out and give the manager his option? I'm curious how this is all going to work out.
I've got a feeling they're going to work it into the challenge aspect.
One thing for sure is we know that it's not going to happen this year. The banning of the shift has not taken place until 2023.
Yeah. So they got a year,
they got a year to
out.
figure it out
Yeah.
and get it.
And experiment with what's legal and what's not.
What's legal and what's not legal. It's going to be interesting to see all of that.
100% it is.
But you know the analytics of it, right?
I don't. Ever since, so I was growing up, I was taught to play the game to the best of my ability. You know, granted, analytics help, but also you have the side of analytics that says, again, pull Blake Snell in the fifth, right? So I think it's some stuff is useful, but as soon as
nobody in America agreed with the analytics of pulling Blake Snell in that.
But
game.
the computer did, and that's all we listened
And what
to.
happened?
And they lost.
They lost.
100%.
I'm going to tell you right now, as a manager, I want to lose. I would rather lose with my horse, my guy on the mound.
Yep, that's what I.
Than bringing in somebody on the analytics side of it as a reliever. And that has nothing to do with Major League Baseball. That's just youth baseball as well.
Exactly.
You know what? I'm going to lose with my horse on the mound. If they beat my horse, then hats off to them.
100%. And I think some of the things that we see in youth baseball, obviously you have, you know, the different like game changers, stuff like that, that allows you to track pitches where exactly they are, hits, you know, everything like that. I think it's great, but I think that if you rely too much on that, you lose sight of the fact that go out there and play. Just go out there and do what's natural.
Feel the game.
Yeah.
Feel. You got to have a feel for it.
Baseball is the one game that if you do not have feel, you will not be successful. It is the one game that I feel like you have to be able to, like that, think of something
and
do it.
And that goes all levels, whether you're
100%.
pro, you're high school, you're college, you're youth. It's all that. But one thing I can say for certain is the analytics told him to pull Blake Snell out.
Yeah.
Pitch count, situational.
Can't say the order 3 times.
Whatever. Yeah, you can't see the order 3 times. Which brings us to our next topic, and you know that's pitching limits in the early part of the season, and how do coaches handle those, and what's that magic number for a pitcher? And man, I have talked to so many different coaches about this. And, you know, I get calls every week from teams that have just got done playing in a tournament, and they'll make statements like, Rick, you know, we faced a kid in the semifinals that threw 92 pitches, and it's an 11-year-old game.
Yeah.
And, you know, my response to them is, well, you don't know what his workload is able to handle.
Exactly.
Every kid's different.
So that comes back to the point of having feel. So in its most purest form, you should be able to go up to any pitcher and ask, how are you?
Yeah, but a 10-year-old kid's not going to, he's not going to tell you, hey, you know, I'm a little stiff. You know, a 10-year-old kid's going to tell you, I'm fine. That's going to be, I'm telling you, I coached for years.
So
his response is, I'm fine.
In the youth market or in the youth kind of atmosphere, then what you need to do is establish a set routine.
You can have a set. I agree with that.
You've got to have a set routine, and then the guys that are still experimenting with pitching, things like that, supplement those guys in. But for the, and I've hated this word since day one, but for the PO, I cannot stand pitcher onlys. Can't stand it. You have them as low as 13 and 14-year-olds now that are doing nothing but pitching.
Lower.
And I don't agree with it, but you have to have at that age you kind of start to get your feel. But as a coach, to have a rotation that says you're going this day and you're not going to throw for another 3 days. I'm sorry, but you're going to throw your 80, 90, 100 pitches this day, but you're not going to touch a mound for 3 days. You know, and especially at the youth level, I grew up with 2 or 3 different guys pitching, and I know of at least 2 of them that have already had Tommy John surgery, right? One of them was going to go to college and pitch, but had Tommy John for the second time. Why? Because his sophomore year in high school, he threw a 151 pitch complete game.
Okay.
Right? So there's ebbs and flows.
So can you relate Tommy John to the 151 pitches, or could Tommy John be related to bad mechanics?
I think it can be related to everything, but if you have bad mechanics, throwing more with bad mechanics, it's a double negative, right? If you have good mechanics and you can throw a lot, great.
How many pitches did he throw?
151.
Brandon, let's put that graph up on with Nolan Ryan. I come across this and this would absolutely drive people nuts.
I know.
So June 14th, 1974, Nolan Ryan threw 235 pitches, struck out 19 in 13 innings.
Man was insane. Nolan Ryan, in my opinion, is the anomaly to everything baseball.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Unpopular takes.
It goes back to what I said, that everybody is different, right? Every kid is different.
Exactly.
Naturally, no kid is going to throw 235 pitches.
No.
But could you imagine? Can you imagine anything close to what Nolan did? 13. You don't see it no more. You don't even see it in the big leagues no more.
No, you would.
I mean, society screams if a big league, major league pitcher throws over 100 pitches.
That's crazy. That is absolutely ridiculous. And one of the things that I do, during the season, things like that. There's a gentleman. His name is Dallas Braven. Threw a perfect game on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Dallas, great guy. He actually DM'd me once, which was incredible. But Dallas says it best in the complete game is a lost art. There is maybe a handful of pitchers that are not equipped or not capable, but that have the trust of the manager in Major League Baseball to throw a complete game.
I don't think they're programmed that way anymore.
No, they're not.
They're not. They're programmed to go get me 5 to 7.
5 to 7. Let your bullpen who throws 95 plus with an absolute wipeout slider do the rest.
So, do you think Nolan back on June 14th, how do you think he would have handled if the manager comes out to get him in the 9th?
With a guy like Nolan Ryan,
he's telling you to go back to the dugout.
He's telling you to go take a seat because he's fine and he's going to keep throwing. But in 1974, granted, again, Nolan the anomaly. But
all right, let's go back to the youth. Let's go back to the youth level now. So now you've again, I just stated that some of the Southern teams have been playing for 4 or 5 weeks. The Northern teams is their first week out. So it's safe to assume those Southern pitchers. Let's use an 11-year-old Southern team right now. His pitch count might be between 50 and 60 at this time of year.
Yeah.
But the Northern team, he's probably on a 40 pitch count. Now that's average.
Yeah.
You've got your kids that maybe they didn't play another sport. Maybe they've started their pitching regimen back around Thanksgiving. So now you're talking about November, so December, January, February, March. He's actually been throwing for 4 months. So if you take the Northern kid right now in March and add 4 months to him, he's in July, which is into their season tournaments. Those kids are going to be throwing
100%.
70, 75 pitches.
And then they're going to go into May, June, and July, and they're just going to keep throwing. And a lot of those kids...
And then the Southern kids, though, their off season is, August, September, October. You know what I mean? That's their off season. So when these coaches called me and said, hey, we faced a kid that threw 80 pitches today, and it's March. Well...
He's been throwing for 4 months, and he is equipped for that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a Northern team kid that threw 80 pitches. At
that point, it all just, like I was saying before, I think it all just depends on what kid you have. Or what, how that kid has progressed from year to year, or...
So you take the 11-year-old, or even say a 12-year-old kid that has hit puberty. Do you think his workload is... more advanced, the 5'10", 12-year-old pubescent kid that's throwing 70 miles an hour, as opposed to the prepubescent 4'5", 70-pound kid. His 70 pitches is different than the puberty kid. 70 pitches.
I think the 5'10" kid, if it is done correctly, I think it's totally fine. But and same with the 4'5" kid. I think
that's the $1 million statement, though. You said if done
correctly, then pitch count and pitch limit. The manager or the coach should have that established with a rotation. With I'm not going to let you get over this many pitches in a game or in a tournament. I think if it's done correctly, these 11 and 12-year-old kids can. The biggest thing that these kids want to do is they want to throw hard. Right, and they want to break off a curveball.
Who's the problem? Who has the problem with the pitch counts early in the season? The opposing team, right?
Opposing team,
because they probably lost.
Yep.
And so they're going to cry about the kid throwing 70, 80, 90 pitches, heaven forbid, or whatever.
Exactly.
But they don't know that team.
They don't. No.
And I've seen many fights, even at TBS Nationals. A kid throws 90 pitches. I've seen confrontations between fans because the other team feels they know better.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, there's no way you should throw that kid 90 pitches. That's child abuse.
Yeah, and who knows that this kid has been, throwing 60, 70, 80, 90 pitches all his life. That's what he's been doing ever since he got 90 kid pitch.
Do you think that leads to your Tommy John you talked about earlier?
I think what I think leads back to the Tommy John. Number one is fatigue, and kind of like the double negative. You can have good mechanics and still get Tommy John, right? Or still have soreness, and everybody gets sore. But I think that if it's done correctly as far as your mechanics are concerned, and the way that you are being pitched, right? If you go on the mound for 80 to 90 pitches, you shouldn't touch a mound again for another couple days, right? I think if that is done correctly, there is no problem that a kid can't go out there every tournament or every 5 days and go out there and go throw 80 or 90 pitches. I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Every every situation's different.
Yep.
You hear people talk about stress pitches.
Yep.
Easy pitches. The 0-0 count, the first batter is an easy pitch.
Yeah.
Full count with the bases loaded and 2 outs, that's a stressful pitch. That's equal to 3 pitches, let's say, or something of that line. But a thing that amazes me is they always talk about how many pitches you've thrown. They never take into consideration the warm-up number.
Yep. Correct.
That's not in the factor.
Throwing on the line, getting loose.
They don't take into consideration the number between innings, which is 5 for the most part. If you've got an umpire that pays attention, listen, I've seen a lot of games where the umpire don't pay attention. That kid's throwing
10, 12.
6, 7, heaven
10,
forbid 10 or 12 in between.
Yeah.
So not only is he throwing 70 pitches, but factor in what he warmed up with and factor in between pitches and all that. That number is really extremely higher than that.
Yeah.
Take Nolan Ryan's 235 pitches. How many did he warm up with?
Probably back
40?
in the day, yeah.
30?
Probably 30 to 40.
In between innings, 5 between innings times 13 innings. That's 65 pitches.
Yeah.
Nolan was over 300 that day.
Yep. And like going back to it, if it's done in the right way, you could be able to go out there and throw your warm-up pitches and do it right and do your bane work and get everything done. Then you go out there and you throw your first inning, come back, throw 5, so on and so forth. I think that should there be a pitch limit, if you hit this number or over, you can't do this? No. But do I think that if a 11 or 12-year-old kid goes up there, he's 5'10", and he's throwing the ball well, and his coach has seen him progress, and he says, okay, you're at 92, okay? Your cutoff was 90, but I'm going to let you finish this batter, right? Or something along those lines, and wrapping it up and then saying, okay, you're done.
People talk about records that will never, ever be broken in Major League Baseball. Well, I don't know how you would quantify that as a record, but
most pitches thrown in a game.
But my thing is, I'd be willing to bet that's not.
No, I bet.
I bet willing to bet
teens and 20s. I mean,
yeah,
they were throwing. Granted,
for me, the record that'll never be broken is Cy Young and his
No.
total number of wins.
No.
Because back then, Cy Young would throw 2, 3, 4 times a week.
No. And he was throwing 80.
Yeah, and he was doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I'm surprised Babe Ruth's home run record got broken.
Well, you can thank steroids for that.
No.
That was last week's topic.
I saw your last week's topic.
That was last week's topic. We're not going to get into that.
Can't do that.
We're not going to get into that.
I'll go down a rabbit hole on that.
But whether you're talking about youth baseball or whether you're talking about Major League Baseball or even colleges, the one thing that a trend that has developed over the last 15, 20 years and even some more the last 5 years is the complete game. You don't see complete games anymore.
It's gone by the wayside.
Whether it's a youth game, even youth coaches now have the kid that they can go to close. To come in here and get that one inning or an inning and a third or something of that nature. It just doesn't happen anymore. You talk about a feel for the game, and I think that kind of goes both ways.
Yeah. Because
now you have a feel for the game like, hey, when do I take this kid out? we looked up a stat that Brandon's going to put on the board right now from 1975, and the amount of complete games that took place back then, and it was mind-boggling for me. We've got it up here.
Yeah.
In 1975, Catfish Hunter threw 30 complete games that year.
Yeah. I mean, that statistic, all of the complete game statistic is a lost art. You don't see guys doing that.
And I'm just going to go down that list. Catfish, I believe, is in the Hall of Fame. I could be wrong, but I think he is. But Palmer, Gaylord Perry is. Fergie Jenkins is.
Yep. Tom Seaver is.
Tom Seaver is on the bottom there.
I think that's all of them. I think that's all of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, but look at all those guys that threw 50. You don't see 15 complete games in a season
from the entire
Major League Baseball now.
No, you don't. You never see it because, in one aspect, it's the analytics. If you can't see the lineup 3 times, right? The analytics plays a big part into that. But the second thing, and this is the big one for me, is that a lot of these starters you see nowadays. Granted, you have your anomalies like your Shohei, your Jacob deGrom, those type guys. If they wanted to, they could throw a complete game.
Oh, sure.
If they really wanted to. But
Sure.
But a lot of these starters, they go in and, their stuff is good for 5 innings. Their stuff is good for 6 innings. They'll have a good day, and maybe it's good for 7 or 8. But their stuff translates to to 4 to 6 good innings. And then what you do is the Colorado Rockies did it a few years ago. Is they went out and they had the best the best bullpen in Major League Baseball by an absolute long shot, right? And they threw their starters their 5 or 6 innings. Thank you. Hand the ball off to, the guy that's throwing sidearm at 98. It all has its ebbs and flows, but relating that back to youth, right? You don't have that. You don't have a kid that can, drop it down and, throw the ball pretty hard or have ridiculous stuff.
But do you think managers in the youth level, they see what goes on in major leagues?
Oh,
and they try to copy it. I think
so
they try
as well.
to emulate it. Hey, you know what? My starter's going to go 5. I'm going to bring in my closer for the last one and lock it down in a tight game.
Yeah.
If it's a blowout, then he'll bring in the number 11 guy or
whatever the case.
But I think they emulate what they see at the major league level.
Yeah.
Not only the players, but I think the coaches do as well.
100%.
They just watched the game on ESPN, the same situation. And the manager relates the 6th inning to the 9th inning. He's like, man, he made a pitching change here. That's probably what I need to do.
Yeah, they were watching that game with Blake Snell, and they saw, hey, Blake Snell's still got 2 or 3 good ones left in the tank. They couldn't touch him at that point. They saw, okay, they pulled him. They tried to bring in somebody better. Didn't pay off that time. But in the grand scheme of things, I think everybody, myself included, looks at the major league level and says, they're on the cutting edge. They're on the forefront of what we want our game to look like. Right?
Well, we've talked about youth pitching for the last few minutes and how we're going to do the arms and the pitch counts and everything else. Let's kind of flip the script here a little bit, and we'll talk about the lineup decisions that come into factor in not only early in the season, but even throughout a tournament, through bracket play, through pool play. Another conversation, a highly topic conversation that I have with some of these coaches, and again, I'm talking in the youth 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old range. Some of these coaches, when they get into bracket play, they bat 9, they hit 9, and they've got 3 kids sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Once it gets into bracket play, again, every coach is different, right?
100%.
Their philosophies are different. What they're trying to accomplish is different. Whether you're in pool play or whether you're in bracket play, if you've got 12 kids on your team and you bet all 12, you're going to have less problems from the parents.
Oh, 100%.
You still might get some problems over field time or where they hit in the order.
Exactly.
But it's going to be less.
Yeah.
And I think that pressure affects a lot of these youth coaches and their decisions to do this, right?
Yeah.
So, but what are they teaching the kids? Are they teaching the kids how to be good teammates? And hey, you know what? Your job today is to set the bench and be ready to pinch hit if I need you. Or you go the other way where the coach rewards the 9 kids that he thinks are going to get the job done, or whatever the case may be. What would you do as a coach?
So For me, the 9U through 12U, I look at it a little bit differently. I take into account what type of tournament I am in.
Okay.
For instance, if I'm in TBS Nationals or TravelBall Select, I am not going to go out there and play all my kids and have a good time. Pool play, I'm going to go out there and play all my guys in pool play, right? Get everybody some game time, everything like that. But once it comes to bracket play, I'm there to win.
You have a pecking order, you get the bracket play.
I am there to win. Now, if I feel like that you could, provide a good pinch hit spot or a good pinch runner spot in this situation.
Even 9-year-olds.
9-year-olds are a little bit different, but for the most part, I think you're there to win. 10-year-olds, no, you're there to win.
So you've drawn the line between 9 and 10.
Yeah.
You've
9-year-olds are purely still learning how to play the game, whereas when you get to 10, 11, 12, I think, the realization comes in, hey, you're playing for the top of the top team, right? And you're not getting any playing time, right? Let's take a step back. Let's reevaluate what we can do and what we can't do, and let's go and get some playing time elsewhere. And then when you're ready, all right, we'll take a look back at this top of the top team. At the end of the day, if it's a tournament like the Youth World Series, for example, we are trying to provide the best experience possible for every kid that's there. One of our main rules is bat 9 or bat everybody, right? You bat 9, then you have free subs wherever you go. Or you bat everybody in the lineup, everybody gets to hit. Either way with me, it's totally fine. But there comes a point to where you get to a different level of tournament, and you've got to draw the line.
There's ramifications, though. If you bat everybody and somebody gets hurt in that lineup,
yeah,
right? Do you, at the Youth World Series, do you skip that in the batting order, or is it an out?
You skip it.
You skip it.
You skip that.
Okay.
How is it at TBS?
It's an out.
It's an out if they get hurt.
Regardless of what the cause is.
Okay.
And listen, I saw it happen. I had a tournament up in Michigan years ago called the Michigan Major Elite. High-level regional tournament. I physically watched a kid slide into second base and break his leg. It was one of the most gruesome injuries that I've witnessed at the youth level. And they batted everybody. And when it came around to his spot in the order, we had to declare it an out.
Yeah.
And the coach understood it, but his parents and his families didn't.
Of course.
They didn't understand it. And so what I tried to explain to everybody, and I make this statement throughout life, and I tell my kids this all the time, and I'll sit here and I'll tell you, rules are in place for one reason and one reason only. Because somewhere, somebody has taken advantage of a rule.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm going to play devil's advocate for the Youth World Series. If he can't make his plate appearance, you just skip him. What if the next kid can't make his plate appearance?
You skip that one as well.
You skip that one as well.
But as soon as a kid misses his plate appearance, he can no longer play in the rest of the game.
That's
He's
fine.
Done. He's done.
Let's fast forward to the bottom of the sixth. Let's fast forward to the bottom of the sixth. They're batting 12. All right?
You want to get to that one spot.
10, 11, and 12 are due up. And you go up to the umpire and said, my kids are sick, they cannot bat. So now I'm back to the top of the order. And they get 4 or 5 hits and they win the game.
They took advantage of a rule. And
hang on, what'd you just say?
I said they took advantage of a rule.
They took advantage.
100%.
They took advantage. So is that fair?
No. Oh, 100%.
It's not fair.
In that instance, no.
That happened to me in Michigan.
Did it?
About 12 years ago.
What? Where you just let them skip over?
My rule was if you have an injury, then we skipped on the order. Exact same thing happened. Coach said it was back then it was 2. My next 2 players are hurt. And he got back to the top of the lineup. Now, he was down 3. It didn't work out for him. He still lost.
No, good for him.
Well, he still lost. But he was within the rules. You can't get me mad at him because he was within the rules. So from that point forward, I said, if you bat everyone, you run the risk of having outs.
Totally,
and I make it clear to everybody up front.
Totally get it. And that's the main difference between your
Different
tournament
levels
and my tournament.
And your tournament.
Right? If you're gonna go out there and in the Youth World Series and do something like that, I'm going to have a conversation with you as to why you did that. What were you thinking in that aspect, rather than.
But
just
if you come up to me and ask me that, I'm going to say it's in the rules. I can do it. That's going to be my answer.
100%. And
it's in the rules.
Again, that's where we differ, and that's where some tournaments obviously differ from others. Is in my aspect of it, again, I'm trying to provide the best experience possible.
Sure.
You are trying to find the best teams that are out there and put the best competition together.
If I'm the opposing coach, and that happens against me, I'm going to go to you and go, my experience was not that good because you allowed him to make a mockery of the game and do that. So my experience is not good.
Okay. I mean, it comes to a point to where, yes, I understand your experience is not good, but this is what in the rules it says we skip over it.
Right.
Right? Your rules say they're outs. Mine say we skip over it.
Oh, listen, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong.
No, I know. But
I'm
what
just
I'm
playing
saying
devil's
is,
advocate here.
100%.
There's coaches out there that do this.
Yeah,
There's coaches out there that do this.
I hope to never see it, but if I do, then that's something that then I will reevaluate and say, okay, if something like this happens where the next three guys are however many
The
guys.
last thing I'm going to say on the topic, and I've had this happen to me personally, is sometimes lineup decisions happen that and when I say you, I'm talking about the other team or even my own parents, they know nothing about.
They have no clue.
They didn't know that little Jimmy, punched, little Sammy in the dugout. So I'm actually not putting him in the lineup. They don't know that little Timmy missed or was late to show up for the game. That's why he's not in the lineup. Or, he missed 2 practices. That's why he's not in the lineup. So this kind of goes back with the pitching. The same thing with the hitting is you don't know all the reasons.
Exactly.
There might be reasons why this is happening. It's not just to win a game.
Exactly.
There could be other outlying factors behind it. And I caution the teams out there, before you jump to conclusions, find out if there's an outlying factor of why that coach did what he did.
Yeah.
Now listen, at the end of the day, it's his team. He can do what he wants.
Exactly.
Your team can do what you want. That's what causes a lot of problems with these tournaments. You try to tell the other coach how to coach his own team.
Exactly.
And that's
never good for anybody because it's just
okay. Well, let's get to what everybody's probably tuning in tonight for, and that is the 2022 preseason TBS rankings. And before we get started, I got to remind everyone these rankings have been done for a couple of weeks. So we didn't release them 2 weeks ago because there were some technical difficulties on our end on getting this list together and getting it out to you. So keep that in mind, because some of these teams that, since tournaments have played, you're going to look at it and kind of scratch your head, but they've been done for 2 weeks, and we decided not to go back and revamp them. We wanted to bring them out as they were when the season started.
100%.
So we're going to start at the 10U division. We're going to go up from the bottom to the top, and we'll go from 10, 11, 12, and we'll finish up with 13. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. In the 10U division, starting with number 25 is Borough Baseball out of Ohio. Number 24 is Gulf Coast Edge out of Alabama. Coming in at number 23 is Oklahoma Fuel from Oklahoma. Number 22, 5-Star Jones for Virginia. And coming in at number 21 out of Texas, the Texas Nitro.
Coming in at 20, we've got Complete Game out of South Carolina. At 19, we've got the Kennesaw Generals out of Georgia. At 18, we have Havoc out of Georgia. 17, the ST Show out of California. 16, Top Tier Cardinals out of Illinois.
On to 15, the Sharks out of Florida. Coming in at 14, another team out of Georgia, Line Drive. Number 13, MVP out of California. Number 12, the Hit Dogs from Michigan, Motor City Hit Dogs. And at number 11, from Missouri, Clutch.
At the 10 spot, we've got Armory National out of California. At the 9, we have Knights Elite out of Arizona. City Pirates make the 8th spot from California. At number 7, we've got the ZT Prospects out of California. And at the 6th spot, we have Line Drive Elite out of Florida.
Now we're into the top 5. And at number 5, the Sba Futures out of North Carolina. Coming in at number 4 out of Mississippi, EBC, Easley Baseball Club, Casey. Number 3, the TBT Ballers out of Florida. Number 2, another Florida team, WFBA. And the preseason number 1 10U team is TBT Southern Finest out of Louisiana. Congratulations to all the 10U teams. We look forward to seeing what you guys do this year, and I am sure these rankings will change as the season progresses.
Yes, they will.
All right, let's get into the 11U top 25. Coming in at 25, MVP Hooks out of California. Number 24, the Ohio Nationals from Ohio. Number 23, ZT Elite Jacob from Texas. Number 22 out of Kentucky, the Vipers. And at number 21 out of Alabama, Hits.
At the 20 spot, we've got Clutch from Missouri. At 19, we have the Oklahoma Fuel out of Oklahoma. 18 is the East Cobb Astros out of Georgia. 17, the Upper Deck Cougars out of Illinois. And at 16, Line Drive Black out of Georgia.
Getting into the top 15, Wow Factor from North Carolina. Number 14, RBI Red Stitch from Tennessee. Number 13 from Vegas is the Vegas Gamers. Number 12, the San Diego Show from California. And at number 11, the ZT Twins from Texas.
At number 10, we've got Braves Baseball out of California. At number 9, we've got Elite RBI out of Texas. Knights Elite makes the 8th spot from Arizona. At 7, we've got the Carolina Cards from North Carolina. And at the 6th spot, we've got Team Sosa 305 from Florida.
Getting into the top 5, we have the SBA Nationals from North Carolina. ZT Prospects chime in at number 4 out of California. Top 3 starts with Banditos Baseball from Texas. Number 2 is MVP Casillas out of California. And number 1, Prime from Florida. All right, let's move on to the 12U. The 12U, starting with number 25, Motor City Hit Dogs out of Michigan. Number 24 is Chandler Baseball from Arizona. Number 23, we see the Show again from San Diego Show from California. Number 22, we see the Vipers out of Kentucky. And 21, ZT Elite Burgos out of Texas.
At the 20 spot, we've got the East Cobb Astros 615 out of Tennessee. At 19, we have Next Level out of Georgia. 18 is the Dirtbags Black from North Carolina. 17, Premier National out of Texas. And 16 is the Jersey Storm from New Jersey.
Getting into the top 15, we have the La Miranda Titans from California. Backyard Ballers from Texas come in at 14. Number 13, we go back out to California for MVP Ruiz. Number 12, the Wildcatters Dynasty Black from Texas. Number 11, the East Cobb Astros out of Georgia.
At the 10 spot, we've got Reed Johnson Baseball out of California. At 9, Diamond Elite from Florida. The Scottsdale Dirtbags round out the 8th spot from Arizona. At 7, we've got VSA Hollywood Heat from Florida. And number 6, Traction Canes from Louisiana.
Kicking off the top 5 from Florida, the TBT Ballers. Number 4, the best name in youth sports, the Swamp Donkeys from Louisiana.
Love it.
Number 3, SBA Marucci from North Carolina. Number 2, the TG Diamondbacks from Georgia. And the preseason 12U number 1 team is ZT Prospects out of California.
Awesome.
All right, let's get into the 13-year-old group, the final group of the evening. Kicking us off at number 25 is Line Drive Black from Georgia. Number 24 is the Upper Deck Cougars out of Illinois. Number 23 comes from South Carolina, Team 24. Number 22 is EBC Stent out of Mississippi. Number 21 is the Spurs out of Arizona.
At the 20 spot, I've got I Am United from Florida. 19 is Dorados Baseball from Arizona. 18, the LV Rebels out of Nevada. 17, WFBA out of Florida. And 16 is the SD Show out of California.
Kicking off number 15 is Oklahoma Fuel from Oklahoma. Number 14, Traction Canes out of Louisiana. Florida calls, the next team calls home, the Parkland Pokers at number 13. Number 12 is the Texas Bombers Elite from Texas. And just missing out in the top 10 at number 11, the LBC Nationals from Texas.
All right, here's the top 10. At 10, we have Show National out of California. 9, MVP, California. At the 8th spot, we've got MMW Prime National out of Oklahoma. At the 7th spot, the Motor City Hit Dogs. And 6th, the SBA Marucci out of North Carolina.
The top 5 is Kangaroo Court from Florida. Number 4 is the Texas Banditos out of Texas. Number 3 is the VSA All Florida Squad out of Florida. Number 2, ZT Elite Garcia from California. and the number one 13-year-old preseason team out of Georgia, East Cobb Astros.
Excellent.
All right, guys, once again, I want to congratulate all those teams that have made the top 25 preseason rankings for TBS for 2022. Again, I have to stress, so you guys don't send me emails and text messages. These rankings have been done for a couple of weeks. We will do our mid-season rankings come up probably in May, right before the TBS Nationals. And we'll see how everybody falls out between now and then. One thing for sure is there'll be a lot of movement between now and May.
Yes, there will be. Yes,
A lot of good baseball to be played. I can't wait. I'm excited for the season. It's finally here. It's kicking off.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for the show tonight. A couple of things before we sign off. Guys, make sure we are open for our top 10 plays of the month for the month of March. You have until March 31st to get those in. You can email those to the lineup at athletx.com. I'm your host tonight, Rick Goff, joined by Aaron Smith and our producer, Brandon Whitley. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see everybody in 2 weeks.